Welcome to the Breaking 90 podcast, where we talk about all things sustainable fat loss. We take people on 90-day journeys to creating fat loss forever. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Breaking 90 podcast. I am your host, Alex Harriman. This is my co-host, Kelly Sarlo. Pointed to the wrong direction if you're watching the video, which you probably aren't anyway. We're the coaches of Breaking 90 Fitness. Thank you guys for being here. Hey, Kelly, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Alex. How are you?
Doing great. What's new and exciting in your world right now?
Good question. Well, Breaking 90 put out the challenge to try fasting. So I've been doing that for a couple of weeks, and I'm really enjoying the process, and I'm really enjoying what I'm observing. It's not something that I ever thought would be, something that I would enjoy. So it's been a really cool process.
That's awesome.
Yeah. How about you?
I'm doing great. I've played around with fasting lots in the past, so that's a fun one for me too. It's fun to explore. Everybody's heard my opinions on it, so I won't dig too deep into that. So what's new with me? I've been playing around with a lot of different training, which is fun. Normally, like, my main focus is strength training, and then everything else kind of revolves around that. And I've kind of I'll never stop strength training, obviously, but I've been putting it kind of on the back burner. So doing like 3 or 4 strength training sessions per week, but not as intense and not as mainly focused in my week, and then putting a little bit more emphasis on some high intensity stuff and running and getting ready for the Spartan races and those kind of things this summer. So it's been fun to just have a change in training and a change in scenery and change in what I'm focusing on.
Good for you. That's wonderful.
Yeah. That's it. What do you have for us for a topic today?
Well, I have a little bit of a heavier topic. As some people know, just because I've done a couple shows with you guys now, I am here on the team as a mindset and accountability coach. And in my personal practice, I'm a life coach. So one of the common themes that I see amongst a lot of people who seek coaches is that they are struggling with what is called people pleasing. So this is, I'll say, a way of living. It's not a condition. It's a way of living that is conditioned into us. And I think that's a really important distinction to make early on. No one just wakes up and decides that people pleasing is a really great way to live. It's something that we learn through our family, through society, and just, by nature as well, responding to us, that when we appear likable, when we appear, presenting ourselves in a particular way, our needs are met. But what happens, or what we see a lot in the coaching program in Breaking 90, is that a lot of people end up struggling to meet their goals, specifically if they have a family with young children, because they end up people pleasing a lot of other members, or different aspects of their lifestyle where they're unwilling to meet their own needs, even if they're signed up for a program like this. So I just wanted to address some of the belief systems that are kind of, beneath the surface. They might be unconscious belief systems that we haven't evaluated. And that's a really important thing to dig into, to understand why we might see progress and why we might not, why we might feel frustrated with ourselves and not know how to move forward. So I want to be really inclusive, obviously, as we're talking about this. And what I mean by that is people pleasing is not a female or a male issue. People pleasing is something that affects all genders, so inclusive in male, female, and they. But for the sake of the show, I'm going to say she. I'm going to use that pronoun, or her, just because a lot of the clientele that we see is female. But hopefully, if people are listening to this, they can draw their own parallels if need be. Sound good?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
So the intent, like I said, is to go through the false beliefs of the people pleaser and then really draw parallels to how that might be affecting your health and fitness journey. So Let's start with number one, and then I'm hoping you'll dive in at any point. If not, we can kind of whip through it, but I'd love to hear your input as well. So
yeah, I'll do my best as we go. Obviously, you have more experience in this field, but it is something that I've been exposed to a lot even in my own journey, but in talking to tons of people coming into this program. So let's roll.
Okay, so false belief number one, other people's feelings are more important than my own. So, first things first, you sign up for a program where you're like, hey, you know what? I have a need. That is something we want to congratulate. First, that people identify they have a desire and or a need to change something in their life. That's a beautiful first step. They sign up for the program, they get all of the, the structure that we've got to offer. And then all of a sudden, this false belief of everyone else's feelings are more important or their needs are more important than my own. So now we're not prioritizing things like meal prep or the types of food we're picking up for our groceries, right? Where they start to think, or continue to think, I should say, I need to make sure that all of the members of the family are taken care of before I even consider what this program might need for myself or what dietary changes I need to make for my health.
Yeah, I think I mean, we see that all the time. It's super common. And I think it shows up a little bit different from person to person. And maybe I'm getting ahead on where you want this conversation to go, but
okay.
We'll see some people will completely push aside, say, their nutrition. Some people will completely push aside their training. Some people will completely push aside both, depending on what else is pulling at that and what else they think or they feel that they have time for. It's just interesting that different people will respond differently or prioritize differently in that situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can really hear it, and I'm saying this with a lot of kindness and compassion and empathy. You can hear whether or not it's people pleasing in their reasoning or their excuse, right? So people are saying, things got, topsy-turvy in my day, and my husband got into an accident, and now we're at the hospital. That's life. That's life getting in the way, and that happens. When it comes to, well, my kid wanted to go here, my kid wanted to go there, and then my husband changed the plans last minute, and now, this is what I'm eating. Well, now we're not using our voice to speak up for what we need, and we're making sure that everyone else is taken care of first and putting ourselves last.
Yeah, and I know we're saying that this happens to everyone, and I agree it does. I know I've done this lots in the past, but we see this tons with young mothers or mothers in general. I mean, I think my mom still does this. So it's like this is every mom putting their kids first, and I'm sure tons of dads too. I'm not just saying moms, but yeah, it's definitely so common. And I think even the belief that you have to or should, right? Not that you necessarily want to, you feel like you need to, like it's like I have to do this.
Yeah, and that's why they're called, maybe this is a spoiler alert, they're called the false beliefs, right? But like I said, they're conditioned. So this idea that we have to do this is fed to us, whether we witnessed our own parents do it for us when we were little, or like you said, even now we're seeing some of our parents still do it and we're in our 30s. So we buy into this belief subconsciously or unconsciously, where we perpetuate it. Whether it's as a parent or as a partner, a friend even, if the friends are getting together and you're saying, well, I'll prioritize the group's need instead of mine. It's just one of those things that sits below the surface. And if we're not sure of, why we're sabotaging ourselves, this is a really great place to look. Are you good if we move to number 2?
I just quickly want to touch on that. So yeah. I don't know if everybody sees it as sabotaging themselves so much as their priorities are in like a different sequence. So for instance, if I get into that feeling where I know I do this, the people pleasing thing, if I start prioritizing other people's needs, I wouldn't sabotage my training as a result, but I would sabotage other parts. Like I'll stop cleaning the house or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, it's like, I think it just depends on some people's priority structures too. I mean, I guess you're sabotaging something, but it doesn't always result in a sabotage of health and fitness, depending on your priority order, I guess.
Yeah, true. And I was intending to draw the parallel to health and fitness, obviously, because that's what the focus of the podcast is. But I also love that you brought up the personal aspect, right? Because it becomes this trickle effect that, like you said, if I'm starting to not clean the house and that starts to weigh on my relationship, maybe that does affect other things throughout your day where you don't have the motivation or the self-esteem to do something healthy for yourself, because now you're seeing the relationship suffer. And we're not drawing or connecting the dots all the way back to, I've been negating my needs, I'm not showing up for myself, and here's the domino effect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Number 2?
Good.
Okay. Number 2 says, if I am nice and fair to other people, they will be nice and fair to me. And I think this is really interesting, and I'm so curious to hear your take on it. I hear a lot of people in the beginning super excited for the changes that they're making. They tell their partner and their kids or their adult kids that they're making these changes and joining this program. And, I have to do these workouts every couple days, and I'm eating on this point system. And they state the needs or the structure once, and then they don't actually reinforce or enforce, this new way of living. And so I'm nice and fair to the people around me if they're not accommodating me yet. And if I keep, being kind to them, maybe they'll turn around and say, hey, Mom, did you remember that you need to do this? Or do you want me to make time or space for you to make sure that your needs are met? We put up this, I want to say, kind of like a front to say, like, I'll make sure your needs are met in the hopes that you're going to turn around and check in on me. But nothing's actually being said. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, totally. It's the mind reader thing, right? Like, just assuming that everybody can read your mind and your needs. And I even subconsciously just feeling like, why are these people not reading my mind? Why can they not tell what I need, but without actually asking for it? It's unrealistic. I mean, we all have so much shit going on in our lives day to day that there's no way we can always be thinking about what every other person's feeling. And so often we take something out of context, whether text messages are the worst, but whether it's a written message or verbal message or anything, we take it out of context and think like, how could they treat me like that or respond like that after the way that I've been to them or the things I've been doing to them? But it's not a personal attack. It's really ever a personal attack when we just assume that other people are feeling a certain way without checking in, right?
Yeah. And actually, when you mentioned we all have so much stuff on our plate, like that brings up the concept of being over responsible and then creating under responsibility in others. So if I'm following false belief number 2, where if I'm nice and fair to you, you're going to be nice and fair to me. Well, I'm taking on too much responsibility to tend to your needs. And then when you don't reciprocate, I view you as under responsible. And now I'm actually perpetuating my own false belief, going, see, you're not responsible. I have to do more. I have to be on top of more things. And so we can't really ever get out of that cycle or that ruminating thought or belief system that's really affecting the way that we tend to ourselves. Cool. Do you want to head to number 3?
Yep.
Okay. What other people think about me is more important than my self-esteem, my health, and my safety. This is really loaded, and we could probably break it down into 3 different pieces. But I thought this was a really neat one to kind of draw, just talking about self-esteem, what other people think of me is more important than my self-esteem. This can relate to the coach that you hire as well, right?
Yeah.
Some people do not show up authentically in their check-ins because they want the coach to think highly of them. They want the coach to believe they're doing well, that they're following things, with relatively great structure. And they don't show up to honestly say, hey, I'm struggling here. This isn't working for me. I'm confused about these things. So rather than speaking up for their actual needs, they present this image or this idea of themselves so that they won't be seen in a different or quote unquote negative light.
Totally. I think a lot of people, when they hire a coach, expect that if I do what the coach says, I'll do well. If I don't do it, the coach says the coach is going to be mad.
Yeah.
But that's not the case, right?
Oh, this is going to come back up again later on. Go ahead.
Okay. So this isn't the case. I mean, with any good coach, we're not going to get mad at you. We're going to hopefully help you find something that makes sense for you and expose where you're struggling and help you identify that. But when people will, like you say, often at a check-in, will tell you what you want to hear or what they think you want to hear, but it's not the case. If you're struggling, if you're not hitting your goals, that's not going to affect me. I'm not upset about that. Like I'm not going to lose sleep if you're not hitting your goals. I want to help you get to those goals, but I'm not going to be like, damn it, Kelly, like I told you to do this every day. Like that's not what this is about. It's really interesting. Even when people come into the program, often people will say, well, if I join a program like this, if I hire a coach, I will do well because I don't want to let someone else down. I don't want to let you down as the coach. And that's the wrong reason to ever get into a program. That's not going to work long term. So we talk about that, obviously, because I need for you to want to do this for yourself. If you want to do this so you don't let me down, that's going to work for like a month, maybe 2 months at most.
Yeah. And so the other way I wanted to look at this too is that never mind the coach, if I'm more concerned with other people's views of me, then I might actually join the program because I want people to believe that I'm, that I am invested in these good things for my health, but I'm not invested for the sake of health. I'm invested for the sake of an image, right? And
Totally.
I see this a lot in the counseling kind of industry where people, they love to say they're in therapy. They love to say that they're in coaching or that they have all of these mentors, but they're not implementing, right? So
Totally.
It becomes part of their identity or their projection of their identity, but it's not something they're actually emotionally invested in with that, that real why articulation.
It's the reason that we've added such an extensive enrollment process into Breaking 90, because it used to just be like, yeah, I want to work with you. Let's go. We start tomorrow. But people will come on for the wrong reasons. And unless we really dig into that and make sure that it is the right fit with the right coach and the right client and the right reasons, it's not going to work long term. We're all about sustainability. So with our enrollment process, that's all of the kind of stuff that we need to dig into. Why are you doing this? Is it important to you? Are you doing it for someone else? Do you just want to say I'm on a health and fitness program because that excites you to say that? Because this isn't the program for you if that's the case, right? If you really want to change your life and start to learn how to make sustainable changes, then we'll dig into that and we'll see if it's the right fit. But if it's just like a lot of people, especially like January 1st, will say, oh yeah, I'm on a fitness program. Well, this isn't that kind of program. Right? Those are the ones that you do for 30 days. You make a ton of progress, you lose 18 pounds, and then you fall off the wagon. You do it again next year. This isn't that one.
Love that. Are you good if I keep going?
Yeah, go ahead.
If I'm good and perfect, then I will be accepted and loved. This is a real kicker. I think for many people, it's different ones are going to be kickers for you depending on how they hit home. But the whole idea of being good and perfect was something that was really wonderfully dispelled in the intake process of Breaking 90, where 80% is the new 100%, and I love that.
Right.
If you can be on top of things 80% of the time, then that is the most we want to really ask of you at this point, because we're just setting up new habits, for a good, healthy lifestyle. So the idea of perfect is not, actually, I want to rephrase this. Hang on. The opposite of unhealthy isn't perfect, right? There's a middle ground. And I think people go from one spectrum or one end of the spectrum to another. We're not looking you to go to perfection. It's supposed to be about sustainability. So the idea of perfection needs to go out the window. And we see that in our calendar system in Breaking 90, where we're tracking like how many days did you follow the plan, the nutrition plan? How many days did you not? And if at the end of the week and the month you've hit 80%, we're super proud of you, right? And some people really still struggle with that, putting an O on their calendar to say, I went over or under points. And as tough as that is, I think it's a really beautiful process that people can learn so much about themselves from, to say like, why did you struggle with that? What about that bothers you? Or what do you believe it says about you? And then what does that mean for you in your head, right?
There's some people who, if they got 99%, would not be happy, right? And that in health and fitness isn't going to work. You're not going to be 100%. Nobody's going to be 100%. Like, we look at like the world's superstars. We look at LeBron James, like he's not going to be 100%, so you aren't either, right? The thing about sustainability is that looks different for everybody. So when people come to me or come to us and say, what can I expect if I join your program? How much weight for an example, how much weight could I expect to lose in my first 90 days? Well, there isn't a cut and dry answer there, because we're seeking sustainability. So what is sustainable for you is not going to be sustainable for everybody else. 80% is a loose goal. Some people can easily maintain an 85%. Some people can lose 5 pounds a month. Some people can lose 1 pound a month. Both of those are great if they're sustainable for you and they're not causing so much sacrifice that you lose quality of life to achieve it.
Yeah.
I know I'm getting off topic, but I had to get that in there a little bit.
No, because what you're talking about, or the explanation of what you're talking about, is going to be the thing that dispels the false belief, right? The idea of I need to be perfect so that I'll be accepted and loved by my coach, right? Or by my family when they see that I'm doing things perfectly, is not something that's going to carry you well through life. It's going to be something that constantly makes you self-conscious and potentially self-loathing, right? On those days where you can't hit 100%, that's going to be a really difficult thing to manage emotionally and internally if you're holding on to the false belief. So everything that you're doing to educate is so important. That's why I wanted your input.
Awesome. Well, it's a great topic. It's something that everybody needs to hear.
Oh, well, let's keep going. So we are into the next belief. It says, if I act naive and innocent, people will take care of me and I won't have to grow up. So obviously you can hear in the language that this is developed for, emotional intelligence in general life. But I thought it was a really neat concept to bring in for health and fitness because we ask people to do food logs. We educate them about point systems, really simplistic point systems. And for some individuals, they will carry themselves through the program and, they won't kind of latch on to the way of measurements. They won't latch on to, how to even measure time. And I don't mean that rudely, but they'll overestimate or underestimate. And I want to mention both, how much or how little they're doing, and kind of shrug their shoulders and laugh it off and not take ownership or responsibility for developing good, healthy, potentially new systems. Right. And if they act like they don't know what they're doing or they can't grasp the concept, they're leaning heavy into the coach that is hopefully in their mind going to be over responsible for them so that they can continue to be under responsible. And that is very unhealthy, right? So if we are adopting a healthier belief system, we want to look at, it feels good to grow up. It feels good to grasp new concepts and implement something that gives me the good feeling of control, right? That it's not all in my coach's hands. It's in my hands. I know what to do. I know how to put one foot in front of the other.
Yeah. I don't have too much to add there, but I mean, even just as like an example off of this, if we're measuring something like peanut butter and I tell you to have a thumb-sized portion of peanut butter and you say, yeah, I have a thumb-sized portion of peanut butter, and then I tell you to measure what an actual thumb is or a tablespoon is, it's going to be very surprising. And so then we start to make these rules for ourselves, almost, that like it's very easy for us to do this in our mind, to start tricking us into being like, it's about a thumb, even though it's not a thumb. It isn't. Damn well that's not a thumb of peanut butter because we measured it.
That's a great example.
But you want more than what is allowed, so you start convincing yourself that it is. Like you're starting to almost believe your own lies, even though deep down inside you know that you're lying.
I love that you brought that up, because what you're talking about causes anxiety, right? And a lot of us don't want to recognize that we are anxious, don't want to admit that we are anxious, but when we start telling the lie, then believing it, we are acting in cognitive dissonance, right? Where what is reality in front of us, we have to believe something different or feel something different about it or change the story entirely to continue on that way, right? So creating that cognitive dissonance for yourself is going to be extremely damaging to progress, not to mention your mental health overall when you're refusing to be in the reality. And like I mentioned, take the good, healthy control back so that you feel good about your own life.
Yeah. I want to give one more example, because I think I can call out everybody listening right now. So you portion out your bowl of chips, and then on the way back to the cupboard, you have another handful of chips out of the bag, then put it into the cupboard. Like, that is the same thing. Yeah. Oh, well, I just had the bowl.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, good.
Next one.
I'm good. Yeah.
Okay. I don't have the right to stand up for myself or act on my own behalf. I think this is really huge. And I want to kind of move into the example of movement here, where we will thoughtfully design a program for movement, for workouts, expectations for movements in terms of frequency, and people won't tell us that they're injured, or they won't tell us that something causes them pain. And so, like the false belief says, I don't have a right to stand up for myself. And what that looks like is, well, Alex or Jerica put a program in front of me, therefore I have to do just that. I don't have a right to revisit it and say, hey, this is what I'm observing, this is what I'm feeling, can we collaborate, right? So
Yeah.
that need cannot be met because of this false belief.
Yep. And even sometimes, so I mean, our main goal is to get you moving and moving consistently and doing something you enjoy. It doesn't need to be, most of the athletes or the members that work with us aren't training to become a high-end athlete. They're training to improve their health. So if you can't do a certain exercise, it's fine. We're going to find you a substitute. It's not a big deal. If you sub it out for something else, it's fine. We want to keep you moving. But what will often happen is I'll check in with somebody and we'll end up talking about their workouts, and they'll be like, oh yeah, the lunge was hurting my knee, so I started doing push-ups instead, or something like that, which is great. I'm glad you're still moving, but we could set you up with something better. We can set you up with something that's more in line with your goals, that would replace that lunge better. People will often feel like they're bothering us with these things, or like you say, they feel like they should just suck it up and do it, that type of thing. But that is the reason you join a program, you hire a coach, is to work through these things. Not everybody's the same. Not every injury is the same. That's what we're here for.
Yeah. And it goes to, when we're talking about coming back to the family or the household, I don't have a right to say, I have to get this movement in. I have to get this workout in. I need 20 minutes of uninterrupted, space and time. Please occupy the children, or children, please occupy yourselves, right? Like, it's that belief that I can't ask for what I need, so I won't do it.
And also assuming that nobody is willing to just help you. Like, I've had this conversation with lots of parents before. Okay, why don't you challenge your kids to see who can climb the stairs the most times in 5 minutes? You telling me your kids aren't going to like that? They're going to love it. You set a timer and put a board on the ground with a little tally. Your kids are going to love that. So don't tell me that they are holding you back from doing 5 minutes of something when you haven't actually asked them or tried it with them, first of all.
Yeah, it's cool. And I love that you're bringing that up, because essentially you're saying the same thing, right? So assuming that people are not going to step up is the surface level assumption, but the belief system underneath it is that I don't have a right. And this is where all of the 10 false beliefs really work in conjunction. There's never just one that's operating on its own. It's a multitude, right? So if I'm starting out with number one, other people's needs are more important than my own and their feelings are more important, then I'm definitely not going to have a right to stand up for myself, right? So there's two alone that are in operation, and we'll get into some others that follow suit. So I want people to hear their own thoughts, hear the ideas that they're having consciously, and then potentially look at this, list of false beliefs and ask, okay, which ones are in operation when I keep telling myself that, when I refuse to challenge those thoughts, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Are we heading to the next one?
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna lump the next two together, if that's okay. So people might be losing count, but this is two. The first is anger is a destructive emotion and shouldn't be expressed, especially directly to those with whom I am angry. And the second is it is better to avoid conflict at all costs. And I'm lumping them together because people believe that if there are conflicting or opposing views or just even options, that is conflict, and conflict therefore equals anger. So it becomes like this one like meshed ball of stress, essentially, that I can't stand up for my needs because that's a conflict, right? My needs might be different than someone else's. I don't want to create conflict because I can't afford for people to be angry with me, right? So are we seeing how they're all an effect?
For sure. I mean, this circles back to you just assuming that your needs are so I'm going to use my continuum example, but you're assuming that the other person's needs are a 10 and yours are a 1, and there's no middle ground there, and that like if you express what you need at this end of the scale, it's so far from what they need that it's not going to work. But it all comes down to that assumption, right?
Yeah. And then, of course, the underlying belief system that I don't have the right. I'm going to constantly go back to this idea that I don't have the right. Because I think, some people, when I run through this activity, really scoff when they read them for the first time. And I love that. I love that they scoff, that they read it and they know off the top of their head that these are not true. But then I ask them the follow-up question of, do you conduct yourself this way anyway? And they're like, oh, shit. Yeah. Right. So I love that it's not true, but why then did you think that everyone else has the right, but you don't?
Yeah.
So circling back to anger, right? Like, not all conflict is difficult. Not all conflict is mean. It just means there are two different things being put on the table. And we can enter into a collaborative conversation with individuals, age appropriately, of course, to check in, like you said, and say, what are your needs? If these are my needs, how can we make sure that, we're collaborating and helping each other out?
And almost always addressing them earlier ends in a better result.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing too is the whole idea that anger is a destructive emotion and shouldn't be expressed. Okay, but now you're bottling up your own anger. You've got your own inner conflict that you have now deemed unacceptable, right? So now we're in a battle with ourselves that we are experiencing an emotion that is inappropriate. Where do we put it? Right? So if we're buying into the idea that conflict should be avoided at all costs, then we're never actually getting ahead of our anger, right? Before it even has the opportunity to fester. By just simply entering into a mature conversation.
Yep, for sure. No, that's great. I think just like the last thing I'll add is on my same continuum example is that we like our best case scenario is the outcome to be that end of the spectrum that we needed. We assume what will happen or what will come from it is the complete opposite end, but almost always it will be something in the middle, right? So having that conversation early before it festers, before it becomes something worse, will rarely ever result in that worst case of what you expect.
Yeah. And I do want to address too, like, I know you come from a very loving household, a very rational household, and I am lucky and happy to say the same about mine. And I know that's not true for everyone. So a
Yeah.
lot of people who are listening today, and you know, we've still got more to talk about. You have tons of evidence that you have to keep buying into the belief systems because you're being treated to do so, right? And I want to acknowledge that perhaps that is your reality, where you're living with a narcissist, or you're living with a verbally abusive partner, or adult child, or that is what you grew up witnessing within your own parents' marriage. So you may have tons of evidence stacked against you that people pleasing is the right way to have your needs met, or the best way to have your needs met. And so we're presenting this to challenge those belief systems, to help you evaluate your current situation, to say, you know, is this healthy the way that we're communicating? Am I contributing to the constant lack of health? You know, and do we need to potentially bring in a third party to mediate these conversations so that we can both learn a better way of communicating? Because that falls on two people, not just one, right? People pleasers are huge withholders. We're talking about people who will not speak up for their needs. They're not showing up in the relationship. We might have someone on the other end, whether it's a partner, a boss, an adult child, who is on the opposite end, verbally abusing, right? So now we're just swinging the pendulum of lack of health. We both need the tools to come into the middle ground to communicate.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. And it's never about, you know, pointing a finger and placing blame. It's asking yourselves, you know, where does my personal responsibility lie without being over responsible or creating under responsibility? Okay, so do you want to move to the next one?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we've got two more.
Okay.
It says there is good in everyone, and if I give someone enough chances, they will eventually show it to me. So this, you know, this is one that lends itself more to general lifestyle. But kind of what we just talked about, you know, if you are trying to speak up for your needs, but people are consistently shooting them down, not giving you, you know, the space or the room in the relationship to be yourself and have needs, but you keep staying, expecting them to do the changing, then we are buying into other ones that we've already talked about. You know, if I'm good and fair, they're going to come around and potentially meet my needs. We want to look at this and say, have I given this person enough chances to meet my needs? Have I given this person enough chances to show up in the relationship and value me? And I need to start making some other decisions, right?
Yeah. I just circling back to the title of what this one is. So what I consider to be good is not necessarily, well, it won't be identical to what you consider good or the other person considers good either, right? So I think most people in their own set of rules and guidelines but try to be a good version of what they consider good. But that doesn't mean it's going to be identical to what we all think. So although they think they are doing good, it doesn't mean they're doing what you consider good, and there's some disconnect there also, right?
Yeah, and maybe this will help to sort of give an example, to draw a direct parallel. You know, if this false belief says if you give someone enough chances, they will eventually show it to you. There's good in everyone, right? If I'm saying to my partner, hey, I've joined this new program, you know, it's really important for me to get my 20 minutes of purposeful movement and, you know, work out 2 to 3 times a week. I really want to figure out how to accommodate that in our family schedule. How can you help me out, or how can we make this possible? And they shoot me down every single time. And I keep saying, hey, this really matters to me, broken record, this is what I need to do. And it's been 3 months where they have not lifted a finger metaphorically to make sure that they can either watch the kids, create that space, leave the house, you know, ask me to go for a walk, etc. Then we see over and over again, they have no intention of meeting those needs. So why do I keep coming back to them in an attempt to have those needs met if I have clear indication that they have no intention of doing that, right? They're saying, I hear that matters to you, I don't care.
Yeah.
And we do see that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Rare with our wonderful group of people, but it does happen. And I also want to be able to bring that up to say, you know, we're here to help you with that and support you.
Yeah.
Cool. And then The last one I don't think is really necessary or applicable. I'm going to read it anyway if people are reflecting on their own lifestyle, not just for health and fitness. One of the last false beliefs says women need men to protect them and support them financially. I love hearing people scoff at this one in particular. It is still a false belief though, right? Like there is still a massive belief in different cultures of the world, but I'll still say all, where there's this idea that being in a relationship is better than being alone, right? So I need to have a partner. That is important. And so I'm willing to buy into the other beliefs, the other false beliefs, in order to hang on to this idea that I'm successful if I am two instead of one.
I'm actually going to draw a connection to this program directly, in that often on an enrollment call with somebody, they will say that I need to get off the phone to discuss this with my partner, which I understand. If you need to, and that's part of your relationship, that's cool. No issues there. But they will express that this is what they need. This is the solution to what I need. This is the program that I need. This is, for me, I need to do this, but I need to go ask my partner's permission, which is the problem for me. I have no issue with you getting off the phone to discuss it with them, and you guys can talk about different options or whatever. But if you truly believe this is the solution, and you have that conversation, your partner says, no, you're not doing this, and you don't do it because of that, that's a huge issue, right? And that, I think, kind of circles back to that point right there.
Yeah, and I mean, we have to touch on finances, right? Like if you have joint finances and what you're doing is getting off the call to discuss, can we budget this? This is important. Yeah, that's a necessary conversation of respect in a relationship. If it is, what do you think? You know, what do you think of me for doing this? Do you think I'll be successful at this? Then yeah, we are really solidly operating in false belief number 10.
Agreed. And yes, from a financial standpoint, it's different, obviously, but at the end of the day, I think if it's important enough, like most people are going to find a way to make that work if it is truly important enough for you. I think though, more often than not, it's asking your partner's permission, if they're going to support you on this journey, if they're going to support what you need to do here. And to me, that's a difficult one.
Oh, I so agree. You know what? And here, I'm going to reiterate the intention again is to help people reflect on, do I buy into that belief? Do I think that's a healthy way to live? And even if I clearly know it's a false belief, am I operating that way anyway? Right? Mm-hmm. Some people will still get off the line and say, okay, I need to eat this, handfuls of veggies, and I need to eat, within a certain time frame, or, I need to eat a little bit more meat. Like, are we going to be okay with this? Okay, how come that is something that you still need to check in, and you are unsure that they are going to support you? Because that is indicating something of where you're at in the relationship, right? Yep. That's a bigger thing that we need to address. We being you in your relationship, not necessarily the coaches of Breaking 90 Fitness.
Yeah, agreed. That's a big one for me. I'm going to kind of go full circle here too, in that a lot of people will choose not to do something like this because they assume that they aren't going to have that support, right? Without having that conversation where they might be completely surprised. I think that people will often open up to me quite a bit on that call, tell me what's really motivating them, why they want to do this, why this is important to them. I believe that if you express that to your family the same way you expressed it to me, most families will be supportive of that. But what's that?
I think that's optimistic.
Okay. But I think part of the problem is that we don't express it the same way. We say, I want to do this thing where I'm going to lose 15 pounds and I have to eat like this. Will you support me? And your partner or your family doesn't see what it truly means to you, how important it actually is to you, because you didn't have that level of conversation. I think that that's important to reflect on too.
I love what you're saying. So actually articulating what it means to you. So expressing that why instead of the result that you're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if your family members heard how important this truly is to you, the things you told me about why you want to do this, you would get more support.
Okay. So as devil's advocate, just in this conversation, I'm
Okay, I gotta go.
I love it. I'm happy that you believe that. I think that's really wonderful. And I think that's really telling of the support system that you have around yourself. In my experience, though, with coaching, that is not true of a lot of families where verbal abuse runs rampant in their home.
Sure.
They don't even know what it is because it's just their natural way of communicating. So we present this thing that's really important to us, to our partner, and say exactly why it's important. And they go, well, you know, you don't follow through on anything. You're really inconsistent. You start a lot and you never finish it. And they point out or are very quick to criticize
Right.
in some, well, obviously in some really unhealthy ways, right? I hope that the support is something that's a given for most people, but I do see where there's tons, like I said, of evidence stacked against them. And so they don't know how to articulate their needs because their environment is reinforcing the false beliefs.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that too. Absolutely. I've even in the past like offered to get on three-way calls with the person interested in the program, their spouse, and myself. And some people, that's like, oh no, I could never do that. And like, it's sad. I feel bad that they couldn't.
That's true. So those are the 10 false beliefs of a people pleaser that I wanted to offer to individuals today.
Cool.
I also want to say as a resource, if any of these, you know, really hit home for you and you're like, well, geez, now what? They all come from Beverly Angel's book called The Nice Girl Syndrome. And it's available, I don't believe it's an Audible. I think it's just paperback. I don't believe it's an ebook, but it's, you know, Amazon, Indigo, Barnes and Nobles, wherever you're shopping from. She has over 20 self-help books. They're absolutely incredible. She really focuses on topics of shame. I'm not getting any kickbacks if you're buying these books. I'm just recommending them because they're tried, tested.
Make sure you put Kelly 2550 in the coupon code section.
I wish. No, they're really wonderful resources. So like I said, The Nice Girl Syndrome by Beverly Angel. If you're interested.
It's on Audible.
Oh, excellent. What I do love, and this is why I'm bringing it up, is that the first half of her books are always the problem. The second half is the solution, right? So you're not just going to be reading about what you're going through and having just empathy, which is important. You're also going to get those next steps about how to come out of it, what those healthy belief systems are that we want to start ingraining in us, you know, how to put one foot in front of the other, which is really important for support.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for listening. I know this is a longer episode than our usual, but we talked about it in advance. We thought it was important for you guys to hear, and I think you guys are going to get a lot of value out of it. If there's anything that you have questions about or that really resonated with you or that you want to get into a little bit more, please reach out to us or let us know. We're always happy to chat. Love it if you guys shared this episode with anybody else that you think might get value from it too. So if you can share the link or even just take a screenshot and share it to your Instagram story, that's huge for us as we continue to grow our audience. The last thing I want to leave you guys with is just a super quick kitchen tip. Not sure if I've given this one in the past, but it's really useful. It's just substituting plain Greek yogurt for other white sauces like mayonnaise and like sour cream. It's like the best substitute. For something like tuna on a tuna sandwich, you can put plain Greek yogurt in there instead of the mayonnaise you usually would. Keep the calories lower, the protein higher, and you won't really notice the taste difference, to be honest with you, if you throw some veggies and stuff in there too. That's my tip for the day. I've probably given it in the past, but it's worth repeating.
Alex, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate you bringing the topic to the table. All right, guys, have a great day. Thanks for listening.